Exploring the life and presidency of Ernesto Zedillo, achievements and challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, gather around as we delve into the intriguing journey of Ernesto Zedillo, a figure who encapsulated both the old and the new within the Institutional Revolutionary Party, PRI. He assumed the presidency amidst tumultuous circumstances and navigated a complex political landscape, leaving a lasting imprint on Mexican history. Join us as we explore the key aspects of his life and presidency. Number 1, Early Life and Humble Beginnings. Ernesto Zedillo Ponce de Leon was born on December 27, 1951, in Mexico City, to a family of modest means. At the age of 3, his family relocated to Mexicali, Baja California, where he began his education. Zedillo's formative years were marked by financial challenges, compelling him to work as a shoe shiner to contribute to his family's income. He returned to his birthplace to complete his high school education and pursued a degree in economics at the National Polytechnic Institute, obtaining his bachelor's degree in 1976. Number 2, Emergence as a young technocrat. During his time as a student in Mexico City, Zedillo participated in the protests of 1968 against the government of Gustavo Díaz Ordaz. However, he later joined the Institutional Revolutionary Party, PRI, and ascended the ranks as a promising young technocrat. His dedication to economics led him to secure a scholarship from the government, enabling him to pursue a PhD in economics at Yale University in the United States. He honed his skills as an assistant auditor at the National Army Bank, gaining valuable experience that would serve him well in his future endeavors. Number 3, Presidential Candidacy and Economic Reforms. Zedillo's political trajectory accelerated as he embraced the economic liberalization policies championed by President Carlos Salinas de Gortari. He supported measures such as the privatization of state-owned enterprises, tariff reductions, and the negotiation of the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA. His commitment to these reforms earned him the role of Secretary of Programming and Budget under Salinas's administration. Tragedy struck in 1994 when the assassination of PRI presidential candidate Luis Donaldo Colosio led to Zedillo's unexpected ascent as the party's new presidential nominee. Number 4, Presidential Campaign and Leadership Style. Zedillo's presidential campaign was launched in the midst of turmoil following Colosio's assassination, and the emergence of the Zapatista Army of National Liberation in Chiapas. Despite his lack of charisma, Zedillo's campaign leaned on the PRI's formidable political machinery to secure his victory. His administration's platform revolved around the slogan "Well-being for your family," and he knows how to do it. While he lost the first televised presidential debate to Diego Fernández de Ceballos from the National Action Party, PAN, his victory in the elections marked the end of the 20th century as Mexico's last president of the millennium. Number 5, Election and Legacy. In a surprising turn of events, Zedillo managed to secure a presidential victory with 48.75% of the votes, a departure from the overwhelming majorities typically associated with PRI candidates. His opponents, Diego Fernández de Ceballos from PAN and Cuauhtémoc Cárdenas, garnered 25.97% and 16.59% of the votes, respectively. Zedillo's election was attributed to his role as a symbol of continuity amidst a shifting political landscape. Number 6, Forming an Unstable Cabinet. As he assumed the presidency, Zedillo assembled a cabinet comprised mainly of young technocrats with limited political experience. This was a departure from the historical pattern, and marked the first post-revolutionary Mexican executive cabinet with ministers openly affiliated with political parties. The resulting high turnover rate, with up to 25 changes in the cabinet, characterized his administration's instability. Zedillo's governance was often described as an extension of the Salinas era, albeit without Salinas himself. Number 7, Confronting a Deep Economic Crisis. Upon assuming the presidency, Zedillo was immediately confronted with an imminent economic crisis inherited from his predecessor, Carlos Salinas de Gortari. On December 20, 1994, a mere 20 days into his tenure, Zedillo was forced to devalue the Mexican peso. This decision had far-reaching repercussions, causing companies with dollar-denominated debts and significant obligations in U.S. currency to suffer immediate and devastating blows to their financial health. Many enterprises went bankrupt, leading to massive job losses. This period became famously known as the December mistake, a term coined by Carlos Salinas de Gortari to emphasize the perceived errors in Zedillo's response to the crisis. Number 8. Forging ahead with tough economic adjustments. In February 1995, Mexico entered a formal agreement with the International Monetary Fund, IMF, to address the severe economic collapse that unfolded during the final days of Salinas's government, and the initial months of Zedillo's term. This arrangement injected $51 billion into Mexico's economy, offering a lifeline during this turbulent time. The adjustment plan included a reduction in public spending, an increase in the value-added tax, VAT, from 10 to 15%, wage cuts, and the escalation of public service prices. These measures aimed to alleviate deficits incurred by state-owned companies. Additionally, the plan accelerated the privatization of remaining state-owned enterprises. Number 9. Navigating bank debt and financial woes. In a bid to rescue a banking sector that had been privatized just a few years earlier, Zedillo took the unprecedented step of assuming the overdue debts of banks in 1995. The first full year of Zedillo's presidency witnessed a staggering 52% inflation rate and a plummet of 6.9% in the gross domestic product, GDP. The devaluation of the US dollar led to the bankruptcy of numerous businesses and exacerbated unemployment, as debtors struggled to meet their obligations. Zedillo made the audacious move of purchasing defaulted loan portfolios without congressional authorization and entrusted their management to the Fund for the Protection of Savings, FOBAPROA. This move amounted to a colossal rescue effort, estimated at a staggering 467 billion pesos, or 40% of the GDP of 1997. This financial bailout was twice the size of the national internal debt, and two-thirds of the 1998 budget. Number 10. Controversies and the banking rescues. Zedillo faced criticism for his approach to rescuing banks without thoroughly investigating potential corrupt practices by certain bankers. His response was that it was the least costly path. Indebted individuals organized into associations like El Barzón to protest the payment of interest over interest. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of interest payment legality. The government proposed debt restructuring to aid borrowers. Notably, Graciela Márquez's book Crisis y Estancamiento, La Economía Mexicana 1982-2012 discussed the controversial transformation of FOBAPROA into the Institute for Protection of Bank Savings, IPAB, transferring the rescue liabilities to government debt. This move incurred an additional financial burden of 700 billion pesos. Number 11. Enduring debt for future generations. Zedillo's tenure witnessed the continuation of FOBAPROA for 4 years, concluding in 1998 when it was converted into public debt. This marked the moment when Zedillo officially assumed this burden as government debt. Initial calculations estimated a repayment period of 30 years. Presently, projections suggest that repayment may extend beyond 2040. It is anticipated that the interest-driven debt will reach 2 trillion pesos, signifying that even with an annual allocation of up to 50 billion pesos, only the interest payments can be covered. Zedillo's government justified this decision by stating that failing to implement these measures could have led to an economic collapse resulting from widespread bank failures. Number 12. Economic continuity and integration. Building upon the groundwork laid by Carlos Salinas de Gortari, Zedillo maintained the momentum of economic liberalization. He continued the process of integrating Mexico's economy with those of the United States and Canada, initiated by the signing of the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA. Mexico's commercial exchange with its northern partners intensified, and by the end of Zedillo's presidency, Mexico stood as the second largest trading partner to the United States, trailing only behind Canada. This period also saw an influx of investments in export-oriented assembly and manufacturing businesses. While criticized for low wages and limited value addition, these investments contributed to employment. Zedillo also established bilateral trade agreements with countries such as Chile, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Bolivia, furthering Mexico's international economic ties. Number 13, confronting the Zapatista uprising. On February 9, 1995, the Zapatista Army of National Liberation ended the truce that had been in effect since January 1994. In response, President Zedillo ordered the federal army to encircle the rebels in the Locandon jungle and capture Subcomandante Marcos, the leader of the uprising. However, to discredit the insurgents, the government revealed that Subcomandante Marcos was not an exploited indigenous individual, but rather a former university professor named Rafael Sebastián Guillén Vicente. Swiftly, the military operation was halted, giving way to negotiations. These culminated in the signing of the San Andrés Accords on Indigenous Rights and Culture on February 16, 1996. Number 14, familial tensions and arrests. Raúl Salinas de Gortari, brother of former President Carlos Salinas de Gortari, was arrested on February 28, 1995, as a suspected mastermind behind the assassination of José Francisco Ruiz Massieu, a former brother-in-law and PRI Secretary-General. This move was perceived by Carlos Salinas as an attack on his family by President Zedillo. Raúl Salinas was eventually sentenced to 50 years in prison in 1999. However, his case underwent review in 2005, leading to his acquittal for the crime of Ruiz Massieu's murder after spending more than a decade in prison. Number 15, the Aguas Blancas Massacre. On June 28, 1995, a group of peasants associated with the Southern Sierra Peasant Organization were detained at a checkpoint in Aguas Blancas by the Judicial Police of Guerrero State. A chaotic situation ensued, resulting in a shootout in which 17 peasants lost their lives and 23 were seriously wounded. While the police initially claimed they were responding to aggression, subsequent investigation revealed that the peasants were unarmed and non-resistant. The incident underscored the tense relationship between the rural population and the state government, as earlier interactions between the two had been strained. Number 16, PRI's first electoral defeats. Under Zedillo's leadership, the PRI experienced its first two major electoral defeats. Following losses to Carlos Salinas de Gortari and Zedillo himself, the most significant triumph of the opposition came in 1997. Cuauhtémoc Cárdenas, the son of the renowned President Lázaro Cárdenas, became the first governor of Mexico City elected through a democratic process. Subsequently, 3 years later, Vicente Fox from the National Action Party, PAN, ended the PRI's 7-decade dominance by winning the presidential elections in 2000. Zedillo's administration facilitated a smooth transition of power by acknowledging Fox's victory swiftly after its announcement, avoiding the customary tensions and violence often accompanying election results. Number 17, aiding Televisa amid financial crisis. Towards the end of his term, Zedillo played a pivotal role in saving Televisa, Mexico's major media conglomerate. Emilio Azcárraga, the magnate behind Televisa, handed over the company's presidency to his son, Emilio Azcárraga Jr. However, concerns loomed over mounting debts that could jeopardize the Azcárraga family's control over the media giant. Televisa had been affected by the aftermath of the December mistake, including a debt of nearly $1.5 billion from acquiring Romulo Farrell's share block. Emilio Azcárraga, known as El Tigre, sought the president's assistance. With Zedillo's intervention, the National Banking Commission facilitated the restructuring of the company's debts, extricating the principal media supporter of the PRI from financial turmoil. Number 18, Controversies and Allegations. Zedillo's presidency witnessed another tragic event, the Acteal massacre on December 22, 1997. A paramilitary group attacked indigenous Akil people gathered in a Protestant church in the village of Acteal in the Chiapas highlands. This resulted in the deaths of 45 individuals, sparking controversy. While the government claimed it was a result of ethnic conflict, human rights organizations alleged government involvement to weaken the indigenous support base. Accusations pointed towards the Mexican armed forces' participation, as bullet casings consistent with military firearms were found at the scene. Number 19, Economic Reforms and Pension Funds. Zedillo upheld the privatization policies initiated by Salinas de Gortari, furthering the economic transformation. He privatized state-owned railways and satellite communication companies, and also granted concessions for numerous seaports and airports to private entities. In 1997, Zedillo enacted the law of retirement savings systems, allowing private financial institutions, both Mexican and international, to manage workers' pension funds. Zedillo's rationale was to enhance pension benefits, enabling workers to gain returns previously reserved for larger capital ventures. Number 20, Economic Recovery and Challenges. Following the economic turbulence, Zedillo steered Mexico towards recovery. From 1996, the Mexican economy regained its growth trajectory, albeit with a 7.3% devaluation of the peso in September 1998, largely influenced by external factors. By the end of his term in 2000, the economy had grown at an annual rate of 3.5%. However, real wages declined by 25% due to high inflation and salary restraints. Despite these challenges, the nation's trade balance accounted for 42% of GDP. Health and education expenses, along with food subsidies, faced reductions of 7%, 6%, and 10% respectively. Number 21, Persistent Poverty. Throughout his presidency, poverty and extreme poverty persisted as significant challenges for Mexico's economy. By the conclusion of Zedillo's term, over 4 million Mexicans were unemployed, with more than 7 million surviving in the informal sector. This led to an increase of 3.4 million in underemployment, equivalent to 35% of the economically active population. Income inequality also intensified, with 70% of the population living in poverty and over one-third in extreme poverty. Number 22, Migration and Remittances. During Zedillo's era, migration to the United States surged, accompanied by a rise in foreign exchange through family remittances. Almost 9 million Mexicans, largely in their prime working years, resided in the United States by 1997. These migrants became a previously unforeseen source of foreign exchange, contributing approximately $6 billion in 1997. However, the journey for many undocumented migrants resulted in fatalities, highlighting the challenges faced by those seeking a better life. Number 23, Breaking Tradition. Ernesto Zedillo broke an unwritten PRI tradition that rendered former presidents and their families untouchable. While he continued economic policies similar to Salinas de Gortari's, he distanced himself politically, severing the tutelage of his predecessor. In a departure from his predecessors, Zedillo held President Salinas accountable for the economic crisis. This led to the prosecution and imprisonment of Raúl Salinas de Gortari, shedding light on the moral and economic corruption within the former president's family. Number 24, PRI Divergence. Economic circumstances during Zedillo's term brought about a certain detachment from the PRI's traditional structure. As resources dedicated to maintaining the party's client base diminished, Zedillo'S administration saw the removal of 17 PRI governors across 12 states. While this exceeded the number removed by Lázaro Cárdenas during his tenure, Zedillo'S authority was challenged when Tabasco's Governor Roberto Modroso refused to vacate his post to assume the position of Secretary of Education. This followed accusations of electoral fraud by AMLO. Number 25, strains within the PRI. Differences emerged within the PRI during the selection of a presidential candidate for the 2000 elections. The PRI sought a return to a policy of revolutionary nationalism, contrasting with the social liberalism advocated by Salinas and Zedillo. Imposing new conditions for the candidate selection aimed to strip Zedillo of the authority to choose his successor. However, Zedillo maintained enough influence for Francisco Lobestida, who had served as his Secretary of Agriculture and Interior, to be selected. Despite this, Lobestida would later become the first PRI presidential candidate to lose an election. Ladies and gentlemen, we've journeyed through Ernesto Zedillo'S presidency, discovering the intricate threads that shaped his legacy. His time in office brought both triumphs and tribulations, highlighting his role in Mexico's political and economic transformation. We hope this comprehensive overview has provided you with a deeper understanding of Zedillo'S impact. Thanks for watching. If you found this video interesting, make sure to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We'll be back soon with more curiosities from history.